Okay, hi guys. So Keon here, and welcome to your weekly DashGL update. I've made some minor improvements, but at least I have something to show for it, I guess. So the first thing is I switched from 3JS Fiber, which kind of does 3JS but with React components, back to just normal 3JS. So if we go to the code, under components, my canvas, what I'm doing is I'm just creating my own component. Inside that component, I get to create a div, and then inside the div, I create a 3JS viewport, and everything is pretty much normal as I would expect normal 3JS code to go. So this is a nice welcome change. For some reason, it gets a little laggy, so I'm not sure if it's just me doing something stupid or the dev mode or my computer just sucks balls, but hey, it could be any of those things. At least it works well enough that I can actually create a scene and do stuff with syntax that I'm familiar with rather than kind of learning that from the ground up. In terms of being able to look at meshes, which is what I've been working on for the last week, is we can finally import the files. And once they're done importing, it'll go ahead and scan through all of them. And once it scans through all of them, it'll start building up our in-between mesh entity thing where it just reads the binary values from the file and then stores them as a JSON file. So instead of just like bits and bytes, it'll just, hey, say like, here are the vertices, here are the faces, here are the coordinates, here are the bones, here's the XYZ, and everything should be in a pretty readable format, pretty much converting to ASCII from binary. And since I'm a shitty programmer, it doesn't reload on its own, but when we reload, sure enough, stuff is there. So maybe I should do a better job of programming those hooks as well. Anyway, so once we're here, we can now see that we can click on stuff, and I just have a quick placeholder mesh here now. There's a couple of things I'm not doing. I'm not doing rigged meshes at the moment. I'm not doing textures, obviously, and I'm not doing shared vertices, which a lot of these models seem to have, which was a huge pain point for me to figure out for a while. But like, you know, not specifically this model, but I think in the first model, you can see that instead of just having completely blocky designs, what they did in Mega Man Legends 2 is this vertice will be the same, or this vertice, instead of having a square for the top and a square for the bottom, this vertice will be shared between these two bones, and then it creates a nice seamless mesh instead of having, meshes, when old characters like bend their elbows and they've got a mesh, like a square sticking out here and a square sticking out there, like these are actually stitched together, so there's one vertice that gets shared between these two limbs, and that's how they managed to improve the visual quality of Mega Man Legends 2 to some degree. So right now I could start working on improving the character models in terms of adding in bones, rigging animations, but I think before I'm a little bit more familiar with that side of things, with the bones and the animations, since I've actually already implemented that on my PSX tool that's like 2 or 3 years old by now. It's like, oh my god. Anyways, so the direction that I want to go first with this is I think I'm going to start working on textures, and that's where I'm kind of stuck at the moment. I won't say stuck, but I mean it's not going as well as I would potentially like it to. So, Mega Man Legends 2 does a couple stupid things. The first stupid thing it does with textures is that it compresses them, and that's not stupid on their part. It's mostly stupid on my part because I just suck with compression and decompression. Not my forte, but I managed to get the files decompressed, and now that they're decompressed, they do a couple of wonky things, like these kind of cute programming tricks that like once you get familiar with something, you can expect people to do, but you don't want them to do them because they're wrong. So this texture here, this is a 16-bit palette, which means it's got 16 colors. It's only using 16 colors because it can only reference for 16 colors at any given time, and then it has one palette. This is actually wrong. It's 16 colors, and then it's got 4 palettes, and that's what that is. Same with the 128. That's not 128 colors. It's 16 colors with 7 palettes, and it's only going to reference some at a time, and you can swap between the palettes to go through the number of colors, but it's not 128 colors at one time. It's 16 colors at one time, and you're switching between the palettes. So they kind of do this kind of weird thing because I think the reason that they do it is just because like it gets loaded into memory all the same, and they just stop caring about having it right because you can just load it in, it works, and then when they actually go to reference the game, reference the palettes in the game, it just doesn't even matter anyway, so why even care? But it does kind of throw me off a little bit because it's like, well, there's only actually 16 colors, and then there's 7 palettes, and 16 colors in one palette, and stuff like that. So it's kind of wonky, it's kind of weird, and it's like I kind of make myself feel nice because it's like, oh, hey, well, this one works. I got this one working. But then it's like you open up any other one, it's like it found it, but then it breaks. So I've got to go back through all the textures and do a better job of not just having one or two that work and just declare victory that way. It looks like I really have to go back and do a better job and try to find out more edge cases. More edge cases and just more textures in general, just to make sure that I've got a wider coverage of things that actually work and don't work, and start to actually implement some of these things to go through and cycle through the palettes and stuff like that. So in terms of my tool, I can go back here. Right now we're not checking for textures because it breaks, but I can try doing it again where I go through and import everything. And it's gonna take a while because it's gonna run a bunch of stuff. But it'll go through and it'll import everything. And again, like the way that I'm using with my meshes to read through the binary meshes and convert it to a readable format, I'm doing the same thing with textures. I want to pre-read all the textures. I want to get the colors, the palettes down into a list of RGB values for the colors, and I want to get the compressed textures into a list of indices for the palettes, so that later on we don't have to deal with that. It's just stored in a readable format that anyone should be able to read and reference, and that should just be easier to work with. So the problem though is, like I just showed it with the other tool, is that like it works for, I'm getting to the point where it works for a bunch of these tools, but as I'm running to try and cycle through absolutely every single file, I'm running into these edge cases or fringe cases where something is weird or something is wonky, and so I just have to do a better job of finding those edge cases, going back to the other tool, debugging specifically what's going on inside that tool, and then showing them inside the screen. And then as far as showing them inside the screen, my plan is to populate the texture tray here, and I think I could have a canvas that could show the preview of the image, and then like a list of palettes for each one, and then cut that off for the entry, and then have a list of other palettes. How I'm going to actually map the textures onto the characters is going to be another thing, but at least to start, I could have a preview here and kind of work tools the other way. I thought one thing that would be kind of fun to do in these videos is to just give shout outs to people on Twitter. So for the interactions this week, first shout out goes to Merc and Factor Unknown, the two Brain Club crew, two Brain Cell crew. Yeah, you can see how many cells of mine are working. Yeah, just not rubbing together, and this is that visualize, and cool shout out to the two Brain Cell Club and the one Brain Cell Club with crutches. And then the other shout out goes to Etsumara Subaki. for his completely cool NFT call out and examples. And if you want me to send me Dage, or if you want me to send you Dage, so I can have this fine looking number here, let me know, sir. And maybe I can send you 100 dog or something like that. I don't know. Shoutouts to Etsumaru. I guess that's it for this week. Textures. The thing is, the pain is just getting started when it comes to textures. So we'll have to see about referencing textures with PSX is going to be its own video and probably continuous subject to videos over the next February, over the next month. We'll just take it one step at a time. First get them read, get the tool populated, and move on from there. So I hope this has been a good update for all of you. It's been a good update for me. It's 6:30 in the morning because I haven't slept all night. And I guess I'll see you guys next week. Bye.